5 p.m. and you are at a City of Wausau Plan Commission meeting. Welcome. The first item on our agenda, I guess I will just recognize that every commissioner is present. Thank you. The first item on our agenda is to approve the minutes of the June 16th, 2021 meeting. I would entertain a motion. A motion by Neil, a second by Peckham, and Peckham also has something to say.
Yeah, in the minutes, there's a mention of somebody named Kevin Birch. I don't know a Kevin Birch. I think that may have been Kevin Noel.
Okay.
I'll change that.
We will update that. Yep. That
Very
seems
good.
like a house cleaning note.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? All right. All of those in favor of approving the minutes can signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right. That passes. Thank you very much. We have 4 public hearings tonight. I think I know most of you are here for one specifically, but we're going to start with item number 2. Public hearing, it's discussion and possible action on rezoning 1111 Westwood Drive from a planned unit development zoning district to a suburban mixed-use zoning district. This is REI and Wausau Rehab LP. I don't know who wants to take that from a staff standpoint to give us a little brief. Probably Brad.
I can take that one, Mayor.
Thank
You
you.
want?
Yes, thank you.
Great, thanks. So yeah, REI is petitioning for a zoning change. They're working with the rehab hospital folks out of Texas. We've been talking with them for a few years now, actually, and they've narrowed down a site on Westwood Drive, just, well, it'd be west of Rasmussen College. And, you know, that area is actually part of a large PUD, planned unit development, but there isn't a specific plan for that property. It's just included in this really large zoning district. So, you know, the option, we discussed with them ahead of time, you know, you could come in for a planned unit development amendment, or we could just try for a straight rezoning. Basically, the process is the same. And since there is this suburban mixed-use district just adjacent to this property all the way to Highway U to the north, you know, it seems to fit for that zoning change. We don't necessarily, I don't think, need the extra protections in the PUD with this particular project. And, you know, they didn't need the flexibility of the PUD since, again, we went over this with them and they're able to meet all the requirements of the straight zoning district. So I think it made sense just to go for the rezoning to suburban mixed use.
Okay. Thank you. I guess with that, the public hearing for this 1111 Westwood Drive is now open. If there's anybody that would like to approach the podium and speak. Okay. If you could give your name and address for the record, and you'll get 3 minutes.
Sure. Tom Renz with REI, 4080 North 20th Avenue. I'm here on behalf of Estrella Development and Hicks Ventures out of Houston, Texas. Their goal is to develop a 42-bed inpatient hospital, a rehab hospital, on the 4-acre parcel. So I'm here to answer any questions if you have any, but we're speaking in favor of the rezone effort.
Okay, thank you. If anybody else is here to speak on the 1111 Westwood Drive rezone, you may approach the podium. It's technically the second time I'll ask. All right, I will ask one last time if there's anybody here to speak on behalf or against the 1111 Westwood Drive rezone. All right, I'm not seeing any. I'm going to declare this public hearing on that closed. I guess at this point, I'll flip it over to the commission. I'd entertain a motion. Motion by Neil.
Yeah, I'd move to approve the request.
Okay, we have a move to approve. Do I have a second by Brugman? Any discussion or questions? Not seeing any. Okay, all of those in favor of rezoning 1111 Westwood Drive from a planned unit development zoning district to a suburban mixed-use zoning district can signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, that passes unanimously, and it looks like it's going to council next month. All right, next up. Item number 3, it's a public hearing, discussion, and possible action on amending the general development plan at 211 Lavina Drive to allow for the reconstruction of one building lost to a fire, to construct a new 8-unit building, add additional garage stalls to the existing garage structures, add an on-site office space, and provide driveway access to the site via Old Coach Road in a planned unit development zoning district. This is Marathon Technical Services LLC and Dan Johnson. It looks like Brad, you crafted our memo. Maybe you'd like to give us a little brief on this before we open the public hearing.
Okay, sure. So yeah, the zoning of the property is planned unit development. That was established back in the 70s for the apartments. And in the packet is the existing plan for the property that was approved. And that does show that apartment building that burned down a few years ago. And also the next site plan in the packet in blue shows the changes that they would like to make to the approved site plan. So there's the addition of a new apartment building on the southwest corner. There's some additional garage space and office space. Some circulation patterns have changed. There's access down the Old Coach Road now that's being shown. So those are the changes, that are being shown. And I guess, I can explain more, I guess, maybe after some more testimony to the public. I guess in the staff memo, I did note that, there may be more options than just a yay or nay vote on it. There could be approval of certain elements that may not be quite as, controversial as the others. And again, just to note that, this is the general plan now. If this does move ahead, they would come back with a specific plan with landscaping and building designs that we would have review of at the Plan Commission. And as you'll probably notice, there has been quite a bit of neighborhood opposition. There's a petition, several protest petitions that have been signed and submitted. And I guess just to explain those a little bit, those are more for the city council action. So if certain people are qualified within the protest area, that can actually trigger a supermajority vote at council. So this will go to council, whether it's recommended for or against. But again, if there are the right people sign the petition, it could actually require the 3/4 majority vote at council. Doesn't necessarily, directly impact the Plan Commission vote here tonight. Again, it's a show of opposition, obviously, but it doesn't really have a direct effect on the voting, the numbers for approval, I guess. So I'd be happy to entertain any questions as they come up.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you. Maybe before we start entertaining questions, we'll hear from the public. So I'm going to open up the public hearing for this site on Old Coach Road. So what happens if you've never done this before is you can approach the podium, you'll give your name and address for the record, and then you'll have 3 minutes to give your comments. So we didn't make anyone sign up, so it's just a first come, first serve. So you're welcome to begin.
Mark Thompson, 404 Franklin Street. We prepared the general plan amendment on behalf of Dan Johnson. This development first started in the mid-'70s when it was in the town of Stettin. The area was annexed to the city in the early '80s. Initially, this was the first development in the area. There weren't any streets. The property was serviced by a long driveway down to 56th Avenue, and utilities were provided by private systems. There was a well and a septic system along 56th Avenue. Dan Johnson recently purchased the property and has started making upgrades to this project site, which is 47 some years old. The site's approximately 4.8 acres. The proposed 40 units allows a unit density of almost 5,200 square feet per unit. The largest requirement for a multifamily large structure is 4,800 square feet per unit. So this is about 8% larger than the lot sizes or unit sizes per acre for the typical multifamily. Green space is 54%. That's about 10% greater than any of the multifamily district requirements. In the PUD, the process allows for some modifications to performance standards. The only one that's being requested in this application is a front yard setback for one of the accessory buildings. The garage on Lavinia would be proposed at 50 feet setback rather than 60. The building coverage is about 42% of the lot area. That's actually less than the maximum allowed in the adjacent single-family district, which allows up to 45%. Density is 8.3 units per acre. It's comparable to duplex densities of 8 units per acre and much less than the typical multifamily that's in the range of 12 to 20. There's 84 parking stalls. That's about 30% more than required. Of the criteria, the 10 points for approval, number 2 is at this point the most critical. The rest of them generally are site specifics. Number 2 is the consistency with existing plans, and as pointed out in the staff report, the proposal meets 2 criteria in terms of promoting and rehabilitating existing housing stock and also providing a diverse housing inventory. Certainly this topic is going to be a test of the city's current incentive initiative projects for community for all and affordable housing, so it'll be interesting to hear the debate. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, if you could state your name and address for the record, I will give you 3 minutes.
Okay. Good evening. My name's John Burke. I live at 5907 Old Coach Road and slightly up the street from the area in question. What we'd like to do tonight as a neighborhood is express our concerns for the proposal to the amendment to rezone the area. We have a significant number of people from our neighborhood here to protest the rezoning proposal. Those who are adjacent property owners and across the street have submitted formal protests, which was noted earlier. Put it simply, the proposal by Dan Johnson is inconsistent with the City of Wausau's redevelopment plan, residential development plan. We plan to detail specifically why it should not be approved based on the criteria established by the City of Wausau for zoning request changes. However, one major concern regarding the project goes back to how it was initiated in the beginning. I'll set the scene. It was about 3 o'clock on a Friday afternoon before Memorial Day weekend. A logger shows up and starts cutting trees somewhat indiscriminately. He cut through the weekend while city offices were closed and nobody could respond to questions to questions that were brought up by neighbors who were directly impacted. Finally, on Tuesday morning, the city inspector did stop out there and ordered him to cease cutting. The city inspector had to come back 4 times to tell him to cease cutting as it started over. He cut trees that were not only his own, he cut trees that were on city property and also on the property lines of adjacent landowners. The concern we have really with this is instead of, I guess basically this clearly is a situation where he's asking for forgiveness rather than permission. Instead of getting permits, zoning approvals, and maybe having a conversation with the neighbors who might be impacted, he just went ahead and started without regard to those who are going to be negatively impacted. As a planning commission and city council, you have to ask yourself, will this encourage more bad behavior by this developer and others? If you approve this zoning change being requested, you run the risk of this becoming commonplace as a way to get a controversial project approved. Again, the first time we heard about this as any kind of a project, as anybody in the neighborhood, was when the cutting started. My fellow neighbors will set out criteria that are established in code for the City of Wausau on approving zoning requests, and we're going to demonstrate those items that are not allowed or don't meet those criteria, and we're going to request in the end that the council, the planning commission and the council reject this proposal.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Shelly Kramer, and I live at 5806 Old Coach Road in Wausau, directly adjacent to the Tamarack Apartment project. Under criteria number 3 of the municipal code, it states, "The proposed planned unit development project would maintain the desired relationships between land uses, land use densities and intensities, and land use impacts in the environments of the subject site. This criterion is not met. In the original development plan in 1976, the area was approved for only 4 buildings and 32 units and 2 outlots. At that time, the density of the area was extremely rural, which was pointed out before. Since 1976, the additions of the subdivisions were added. These roads became home to the high-end residential homes with ranges of $300,000 to $500,000 market value. Property taxes range $6,000 to $8,000. The increasing of this density of this apartment units in this residential neighborhood does not fit with the character of the area and will extremely devalue the homes in the area." That was criteria 3. Number 5, it states, "The proposed planned unit development project will incorporate appropriate and adequate buffers and transitions between areas of different land uses and development in densities and intensities." This criterion is not met. The buffer mature trees, originally established back in 1976 with the approval of the apartment complex, is now completely gone. The developer has clear-cut all the trees on a half-acre lot that provided a beautiful buffer between Tamarack Apartments, the houses on Old Coach Road, and there were 31 city trees owned by the city lining the street on this lot, and the owner was told several times to stop cutting the trees. As a result, we feel the owner is accountable to the city for his blatant belligerence and should face significant fines. There is no buffer or transition between the apartment complex and our residential neighborhood, and not anymore. What was described as under the conceptual landscaping and the developer proposal indicates that currently select trees are being trimmed or removed, when in fact it was a total clear cut. Under criteria number 6, the municipal code states, "The proposed planned unit development project design does not detract from areas of natural beauty surrounding the site." This criterion is not met. The addition of another 2 apartment buildings and added garages will significantly detract from the natural beauty of our residential neighborhood. We had a park-like setting with a half-acre of beautiful trees, providing a significant buffer and helping to detract from the noise, lights, and traffic from the apartment complex. Since the removal of these trees off Old Coach Road, there has been a significant increase in noise and light. The addition of 24 more apartment buildings, garages, and cars will only increase the problem. No new buffers can alleviate the increased issues encountered with adding another 2 apartment units and a new driveway and more garages onto the site. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Michael Hughes. I live at 5815 Old Coach Road. I'm here with my neighbors in opposition to the planned proposal. I want to focus on criteria 7, which asks you to consider whether the character of the development will be compatible with the character of the neighborhood as currently exists, and it simply won't. Old Coach Road is a beautiful little neighborhood. It's quiet, it's safe, it's wooded. I live 2 blocks away from Stettin Elementary, and in a couple of years, my kids are going to be old enough to go to school there, and I'll be able to walk with them the 2 blocks as they start school. Conversely, the apartment complex as currently exists is a nuisance property. They currently operate at a maximum of 24 units, and they are asking for your permission and your validation to expand that into 40 units. But that's not appropriate, because even at 24 units, that is a nuisance property. Before my presentation, I handed all of you a packet of materials. There are 2 packets in the materials that I gave you, one big, one small. The big packet is a list of all of the contacts that Wausau Police Department has had with the apartment complex that currently exists from January 1st, 2010 until present. Each year gets its own page, and as you flip through the start of the big packet, you'll see that there's not a tremendous volume of police contacts for several years, but there are some big crimes mentioned throughout. There are burglaries in 2013, 17, and 18. The Special Investigations Unit, which is Wausau Police Department lingo for drugs, potentially drug trafficking, was involved in 2016. And as you continue to flip through, you'll see that in 2018, 2019, there's an uptick in the police presence in that area. And then in 2020, the police presence explodes. And I noticed, pursuant to the assessor's records on the online system through Marathon County, that the current developer owned that property in middle of 2020. So that explosion of police presence directly correlates with his purchasing of the property. In 2020, there were 40 police contacts. In 2021, there have already been 47. It's this explosive trend of crimes, including stolen vehicles, nuisance property, drug trafficking, and a series of miscellaneous criminal endeavors that do not justify an expansion of that type of project. Conversely, when you look at the little packet, you'll see that that is a list of all of the Wausau Police Department contacts with the entirety of Old Coach Road from January 1st, 2020 until present. When they've had 87 police contacts, our entire street has had 15. Roughly half of ours involve dead animals or lost and found animals, not the major crimes we're seeing at the apartment complex. Our neighborhood doesn't want this development. It's not consistent with our character. It's not consistent with Stettin Elementary. We're asking that this be denied. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Steve Lang. I live at 202 Lavina Drive. I'll just start off with this. Under criteria number 8 of the municipal code, it states the proposed plan unit development project will positively contribute to and not detract from the physical appearance and functional arrangement of the development area. This criteria is not met. The addition of 2 more apartment buildings, parking garages, along with access to Old Coach Road, will have a significant negative impact on the residential houses in the area. It will also detract from the physical appearance of the neighborhood and our park-like setting we had before the owner removed all the trees on Old Coach Road. We invited several real estate agents to the neighborhood, and they all indicated that the value of our houses have gone down by 10% already with the removal of the trees, and will go down another 10% if the plan is approved. The plan proposal decreases the value of our neighborhood and decreases the safety and security of our children. Under criteria number 9, the municipal code states the proposed planned unit development project will produce significant benefits in terms of environmental design and significant alternative approaches to addressing the development performance that relate to and more than compensate for any requested exceptions, based standard modifications, variation of any standard or regulation of this type. This criterion is not met. The proposed plan unit project will have no significant benefits in terms of environmental design in our residential family neighborhood. The addition of more apartment units in this residential neighborhood of houses with values of $300,000 to $500,000 will only devalue our area and put our children at a higher risk due to added traffic and security issues. And then lastly, within a 3-mile radius of our neighborhood, there are already 17 existing apartment complexes with 45 units currently vacant. Now, I just got a couple personal notes here. I know I'm on a time limit, that's fine. And unbeknownst to me what these other people have said or whatever, this may be an overlap, but one of the biggest concerns we have is a noise factor due to the increase of volume of traffic. We already have like too much traffic on our street the way it is. Cars are constantly coming and going up and down our street on Lavina, with the vast majority of these vehicles going in and out of this complex. I mean, it's got to be like 80% of the cars going up and down the street. These vehicles play excessively loud music, have loud exhaust systems, and don't always follow the rules of the road, such as like racing up and down. Okay, I'm going to run out of time, but there's other safety issues with no sidewalks on that street either with kids going back and forth to school and stuff, and if the kids are walking in the street, this could be an issue with the traffic going on there. Not to mention, somebody already touched on the crime, so I know I'm out of time, so
Thank you.
thank you for your time.
My name is Louis Rosetti. I live at 5801 Old Coach Road. Our neighborhood, as has been pointed out, is an all single-family residential neighborhood with close proximity to Stettin Elementary. If this rezoning is approved, I believe the city of Wausau is reinforcing a practice of diminishing and destroying established and well-kept neighborhoods. You'd be setting a precedent for future multifamily complexes being built in the midst of established residential neighborhoods. The benefit to the city is minimal, and the negative impact to established neighborhoods is substantial. It's hard to imagine that this construction project, the removal of trees, as well as the increased traffic and activity, will not significantly impact the value of our homes even more. Our neighborhood represents the very best of home ownership in Wausau. The clear cutting of 1.5 acre of mature trees removed the buffer between our homes and the existing and proposed apartment complex. Frankly, the method and manner in which the developer approached this is further testament to his inappropriate actions and disregard for the existing neighborhood. We request that the city require the owner to repopulate that clear-cut area with appropriate trees and replace what he removed. We have strong concerns regarding increased noise pollution and security risks, as has been pointed out to the neighborhood. The increased traffic flow, which, if there's access off of Old Coach Road, presents additional risk to the health and safety of our children walking to school or anyone walking in the neighborhood. I don't think this is how the city of Wausau wants to develop residential neighborhoods. Approving a project like this in a high-end residential neighborhood only sets a precedent for future proposed developments that puts additional neighborhoods at risk. This negatively impacts Wausau's ability to attract new families to move in the community. I would make a very simple request of you. As members of the Planning Commission, I would respectfully ask you to devote 10 minutes of your time, perhaps you have already, and drive out to Old Coach Road. See for yourselves what we're talking about. If this were your neighborhood, you would be as concerned as we are. We respectfully request that you disapprove this proposed zoning change. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else that would like to speak in this public hearing for Old Coach Road? It's the second time I'll ask. Oh, all right.
I am Mike Conley. I live at 114 Wintry Drive. And all these people brought up all the issues. And what was said at the very end, I think you all need to take it to heart when voting this or looking at this is, if it was your neighborhood, would you let it happen? You know, there's obviously safety issues that were brought up. I walk that street with my wife, and so do others sitting in the room, and the traffic is very manageable, if any. And now we're going to really increase this neighborhood with people of all ages walking to school, walking their dog, just taking a walk. I mean, it's going to be ruined. And again, I ask you, would you let this happen in your own neighborhood? That's all I got.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like? Yep. If you state your name and address for the record, you'll have 3 minutes.
My name is Karen Yosh, and I live at 5810 Old Coach Road, and it is right next to the property that the trees were cut down. And I just want to say he didn't get to my lot line yet because he was working on the other side. And my husband and I had planted trees in addition to what was already there to buff that area, and He's just tearing down what we had added to the park-like setting and to use as a buffer. And that'll just create more noise for our yard and for the neighborhood. There's already cars that scream up and down Lavina Drive just from coming out of their entrance from those apartments. They're loud mufflers. They, like they said, they don't follow the rules of the road. They're speeding. I don't even think they stop for the stop sign on Lavina and 56th Avenue. And adding a driveway to Old Coach Road is just going to add to that type of situation. I guess it's just, in addition, just repetitive of agreeing with what the other neighbors had said also. So again, respectfully request that you deny his proposal. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else? Yes, Ms. Herbst.
Good evening, Planning Commission. My name is Dawn Herbst. I live at 2809 Springdale Avenue. This is District 9, and I am here to support my district this evening. I really and truly feel that you should take to heart everything that they have said. I mean, this is coming from their gut. They are just absolutely devastated. They are heartbroken to see that a gentleman like of this caliber could come in and continue to get ahead and do all the things that he's doing. And without a doubt, I support them wholeheartedly, and I hope that you as a commission will vote this down. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you. Is there anybody else that would like to approach the podium to speak about this? I'll give you one last shot if you're out there and you want to speak about this development on Old Coach Road. Okay, I am calling this public hearing closed. So now we're on to the discussion and possible action of this agenda item. Is there somebody that would like to make a motion to get us started, or are there questions we need answered first?
Motion to approve as presented.
Okay, we have a motion to approve. Do we have a second? I will ask for another time for a second. Last time? All right, this motion dies for lack of a second. Is there a different type of motion that we'd like to consider? Mr. Peckham.
Thank you. I would move to table this for a month. I would like, and I guess we could do it, part of it today, to hear from our zoning inspector in terms of the alleged, kind of disobedience or disregard for his direction to stop the cutting. And I'd also like to hear from the city forester as to the allegation about the 31 trees cut. And I don't know to what degree we can hold the owner responsible for the actions of the logger, but I gotta believe he was aware of the extent of this cutting, so.
All right, so I just want to be clear, we have a motion to table this for a month and a request for more information. Is there somebody that would like to second this before we continue discussion?
I'll second.
We have a second by Bolkin. Okay, Mr. Peckham, if you'd like to continue or.
That's about it. I think if we're going to vote on this, we could hold off. I mean, like I say, we could hear today from the inspector, but if we're going to hear also from the city forester and anybody else who's been involved in this, we can hold it all for next month.
Mr. Neil.
Thank you, Mayor. Well, I, for one, am not really in favor of tabling it because I don't want to talk about it again. I'm pretty amazed by the brazen and bold destruction of property without regards to direction from the city or concern for the surrounding neighborhood. There's no way going forward, any discussion that I would support this proposed expansion of that facility there. So the only thing I'm interested in talking about, but maybe this isn't the place to do it, is how do we ensure that there's a cease and desist for any further destruction of property or other work going on out there that's not been approved by this commission or by this city? Because I'm just, as I said, I'm just kind of chagrined by the whole thing, and I don't even want to consider giving them an opportunity to, state their case, because I'm just too far gone on it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion, or I did hear a request for maybe information on a cease and desist, and I'm looking at our city attorney, and I don't know if there's any information you can provide now, but I think it's probably a surprise hitting you. She will approach the podium.
Yes, Alder Neil, we've been involved from the get-go. We've got that under control. An attorney from our office has contacted Dan Johnson directly. They have not moved the logs to my knowledge. They have not indicated they're going to do anything further. They know what they did was wrong. We've legally researched it and analyzed it, and there are many avenues of enforcement available to us, and we are pursuing those. So that's all in the works.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Yes.
Mayor, this is Bill Hebert, the zoning administrator. I just would like to say that what Ann was referring to was in regard to right-of-way trees only. So the city doesn't have a tree permit ordinance or a tree cutting ordinance, so I'll tell everybody here that Dan Johnson came to me earlier and said, can I cut a few trees? So of course, he put it that way. I said, go, yeah, there's no ordinance that requires you a permit to cut a few trees. Well, once we found out the clear cutting was going to such extent, and we got several phone calls on that Tuesday morning, that's when our office went out there and said, hey, you got to stop. So that's just to be clear. There's no permit that is required to cut trees.
Can I ask a follow-up question? But we do have the expectation, and I don't know if it's maybe to you or to Brad, but if somebody plans on changing the property for a planned development, we would not want them to change that property before it went through Plan Commission. That would be inappropriate.
It's a loaded question because this was developed in the town of Stettin, so that we didn't have any documents from the original approval, and when the annexation came in, it just showed 4 32-unit buildings and then the 2 garages, so.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, if we would have looked at, in a landscaping plan, we would have looked at the maintenance of existing trees, and that would have factored into their point system for approving a landscaping plan, but again, this was kind of done prior to that, so we didn't really have a mechanism to say no.
Okay. Are there, Mr. Lindman?
So what we're looking at today, right, is just an amendment to the PUD as it's written, right? So right now, the PUD says they could have 32 units there. Is that correct? If they wanted to rebuild that unit that burned, would they need to come back? They would need to come back to Plan Commission with a precise plan on what they're proposing to do, right? But they're not allowed to build another building without an approval today, correct?
Yep, that's my understanding. I mean, the plan that's on file is the one with the building that had burnt. So, we hadn't changed that to say, oh, we're going to take away that building from the plan. So that plan is still, the valid approved plan. But, since it is the planned unit development, the second step in the process is to come back with the specific plans, with the landscaping plan, building designs that we would need to approve that building. But I would say that the number of units, if it stays the same as what was there previously, that's part of the plan that has been on the books, for 40 some years.
I guess that's the issue that I have, is that, if he wanted to do something different, he would have had to come back to the Plan Commission initially under the PUD to do something differently, or ask us to review that plan before he started doing something. That includes landscape, a precise plan. And so he went and did that without following the city's rules, and so I have an issue with that. So I'm not in support of amending the PUD as written at all. So just, that's my stance on it.
Okay. Any further discussion from the commission? Mr. Neil?
So I guess we've got 2 things before us. One is a question of, bringing it back in a month to, readdress it. on its merits, or tonight, just saying, no, we don't want to talk about it again, so.
So the motion before us is to table it. We can either vote that down.
Yeah,
It's, I mean, it's up
to
to.
table it, to bring it back in a month to readdress it.
Yep,
Right.
yep, you could vote that down, or
Right.
you could change it to table it
Okay.
in perpetuity, or
All right.
I forget what the phrasing is of that one.
I would voice my support for not tabling, thank you.
Not tabling, okay. Any further, Mr. Peckham?
I would just say that if we do table it, it would give us further time to consider it. We get more information, and we may decide to consider allowing the reconstruction of the building that burned down, but not the new one, not the fifth building. So I think there's, an option to do that. Mr. Johnson is certainly off to a bad start with us on multiple fronts, but I think if we took a little more time with this, we could consider the possibility of trying to make something work.
Yes, Mr. Burnham?
I'm slightly confused. The construction of the building that burned is kind of a given, correct?
They're allowed to do that? Reconstruct?
That's our assumption. If it's an 8-unit, similar size.
So really, the only thing before us is the additional building and office space and then the parking that's in the plan. Because he could, if he wanted to replace that building starting tomorrow, he could.
Well, he would have to come back with final plans to us.
Okay,
before we go-
yeah, but I mean, that's not changing the zoning PUD that we would.
Correct.
That's before us right now. And, another thing that's not really before us right now in deciding this is what he did with the trees. It's obviously egregious and it probably violated the thing, but what's before us right now is the change that he's requesting. That's why I'm, and going forward and hearing from the forester or hearing from somebody else, I think we're just delaying it, and I'm not in favor of tabling it right now either.
Okay. Anyone else have some comments, or? Mr. Peckham, you look like you're thinking.
In light of the comments and apparently, if we vote this down today, all we're saying is you can't put up the fifth building. Is that correct?
Yep, it's the amendment to that planned unit development.
I would withdraw my motion to table.
Okay, we have a withdrawal. I can't remember who seconded it.
I did.
Withdraw? Okay. So we don't have a motion now. Is there, yes, Mr. Peckham?
I'll make a motion to deny the application for the fifth building and proceed if he brings us a plan. I would like to have in some way, shape, or form some kind of a report on the cutting of the city trees and how that's how we're being compensated for that egregious misstep. And if he comes back with a plan proposing for the fourth building, we will look at that one, but I think this one's dead.
Okay, so we have a motion to deny. Do we have a second? I have a second by Vulcan. Discussion, Mr. Bergman.
I have a question. I'd like clarification on the precise implementation plan. Does that follow the PUD? We already have PUD on file with the 32 units, the 4/8. They would have to come back to Planning Commission with a precise implementation plan, which then would have to be approved here?
I see Brad nodding, but I'll let him speak.
Yeah, so it is denied, and again, this would go to council for their recommendation, even if we deny it unanimously. But if it is denied, they could come back with the precise or specific plan for that building that was burned to the ground, as long as it is the same units, number of units that were there previously. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, they're just not automatically granted a permit to build the new 8 units. They'd still have to come back from a plan perspective, yeah.
Right, and just a clarification on the motion, if I can. There was other things in their plan, not just the apartment building, but they're adding garage space, adding office space, adding some parking space. So I guess the motion was to just to deny the proposed changes across the board. So they wouldn't be able to make any of those other smaller changes that they were proposing, adding on to garages and so forth. Is that the intent?
I see nodding, but the floor is open for questions and comments.
My intent was to put the brakes on the entire project.
Okay. And I guess I just want to clarify, I had a question related to our procedures. As a body, often we hear that we make motions in the affirmative, but a motion to deny makes sense to me in this instance, but I would allow my parliamentarian to tell me if she thought that was inappropriate.
I guess I would just make sure that you make it clear that if they want to deny it, they vote yes, and if they wanted to approve it, they vote no.
I'm getting arms up in the air from public access, and basically, we want to be clear that if you vote to deny it, you will vote yes. If you want to approve it, you will vote no. Or if you don't want to deny it, you'll vote no. So, everyone clear on what we're doing? The motion is to deny it. Is there any further discussion? Mr. Bornand?
Sure.
Yeah.
Thought it was done, but I'm not. In reviewing this, strictly from a zoning sense, you look at the history of the property, and it's kind of interesting. You can go on the county maps and go back to when this was there and nothing else was around it, and then look as things developed around it. And kind of what we have now is an island of zoning, of one specific zoning covered by residential all the way around it. And I kind of have, just trying to simplify it in my mind, it's kind of like a grandfathered type situation where this development is there beforehand, it was surrounded, but it's grandfathered as its current use and the activity on it. And that typically with grandfathered uses in any kind of zoning, you allow it to go on, but you don't allow it to expand. And once it's, if something happens to it, then you look at, well, what are the adjacent uses and what this would be probably better set as rather than this multifamily thing. But I'm probably oversimplifying it, but that's the way I'm looking at it. It's just a grandfathered island of multi-unit residential stuck in a single-family area, and it can stay there as is, but it shouldn't be allowed to expand.
Okay. Any further discussion or questions? All right, the motion is to deny. Again, if your will is to deny it, please vote yes. If you don't want to deny it, vote no. So all of those in favor of denying this rezone can signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? No. One no. All right, so that the motion to deny passes 4-1. All right, we are moving on to item number 4. It's a public hearing, discussion and possible action on amending the specific implementation plan at 901 East Thomas Street to allow for camper vehicles to park overnight in a planned unit development zoning district. This is from Donald Zamzow. I'm just trying to figure out who is giving us the little presentation on it, if anyone. Yes, Mr. Hebert.
Thank you, Mayor. So we have a brief staff report that outlines Bull Falls Brewery LLC is currently a PUD. Previously, it was zoned industrial, and then as the brewery started and expanded over the years, in 2006, 2007, 2008, and 2009, conditional uses were granted for the brewery use and extension of hours to operate the tap room. And then in 2012, a rezone was done to a PUD to expand the brewery substantially and create a parking lot on the north end of the campus. And then as summer started this year, we became aware that campers were starting to park in the parking lot, so we sent a note to the Zamzows, and they contacted us right away and told us about this new program they were part of with Harvest Host, and they can give you some more details on it, but precisely what they're proposing is to have campers that are traveling throughout the country an opportunity to come stay in their parking lot for a night, set up and partake in the tap room or whatever, tour the business, and then in the morning, they enjoy the coffee shop and then head out of town. It's like less than a half a day stay, is what I'm told. So their proposal here is to have up to 4 sites on their campus that would allow recreational vehicle stay for one night at a time. 2 in the north parking lot, just south of the laundromat, and then 2 more along the beer garden fence, if you're familiar with their property. And I think the Zamsels are here and probably could tell us more.
Okay, I guess I would be amenable to hearing a little bit more before we started.
I'm Don Zamzo at 2212 Hemlock Avenue in Schofield, but we're at 901 East Thomas. Yes, what Bill was explaining was something that sort of happened. Harvest Host is an organization that we got involved with earlier in the summer. They have 2,400 hosts in the United States, Alaska, and Canada. And they have a code of conduct that people who stay in any of the Harvest Host locations must be totally self-contained. They cannot require any water hookup, electrical hookup, sewer hookup, or anything like that. They must be there, and they have to be gone in the morning. And just to give you an idea, the places of interest for them is everything imaginable, from a dairy farm, a museum, a winery, a distillery, breweries, golf courses, or anywhere that might be a place of interest for people to stop overnight and sleep and enjoy what they see. I think we're one of the first ones in this area that has that facility. So anyway, we found out that from Bill that we needed to be a campground in order to host these people. Well, we don't want our parking lot to be a campground, so they explained some options, and we checked around with Dale Grosskirth from the Marathon County Health Department, and he said that none of the things that he would normally inspect for in a campground exist in this situation. He would be inspecting electrical and so forth and so forth. But he says that in itself would be okay, but the state still has a minimum requirement that has to be met, whether it's set up for a campground or not. And those are, has to be approved by the city, number one, to change this. And number two, they need to have access to water external to the building, and which we do have. We have both hot and cold. And this is like in case of emergency, some kind of, normally they're self-contained, they wouldn't need the water anyway, but the state requires it. And that there needs to be toilets within 400 feet, and we also have that already there by virtue of our beer garden situation. And the last one is they need to have an alternate sanitary dump situation set up already. So we contacted Mr. Allman from the Marathon County Park Department, and he drafted a letter, and we took the verbiage from that letter and put it in our handout so that when guests come to stay there, they can read that, and if they need to have a sanitary dump, they can go to Marathon Park and they can use the sanitary dump there and pay the appropriate fee that's associated with it. As far as for Bull Falls, it's really a nice situation. We've met people from all over the country in just a couple of months that we were doing it. And we look forward to being able to continue doing it. I think it's good for the city too, because some may go downtown to eat supper, or we hope they stay at our place for a while and have some coffee and breakfast sandwich in the morning. So that's basically did I miss something, Bill?
Thank you.
Okay. All right.
I can just expand that, because they have proposing three or four sites that they're subject to a campground license from from the state that's administered by
Yeah.
the health department.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
All right, at this point, I will open up the public hearing for members of the public. If they have anything to say about this rezone plan at 901 East Thomas Street, I would welcome you forward. All right, I'm going to have to ask 3 times, so that's the first time. Here's the second time. If there's anybody here who's interested in testifying at this public hearing on the rezone at 901 East Thomas Street. All right, I guess one last time, I'll leave it open in case there's a straggler. Anyone want to speak on the rezone at 901 East Thomas? Okay, this public hearing is now closed. And at this point, I guess I would entertain, I have a motion by Brugman. Do you have a specific motion you'd like to make or staff recommendation?
The staff recommendation, the SIP with the issuance of the license and no more than 4 spots.
All right, so the staff recommendation and the motion is recommending the approval of the proposed change to the specific implementation plan, subject to issuance of a campground license issued by DATCAP, and limiting the spaces to no more than 4 sites. So I have a second by Neil. Any discussion or questions here? Yeah, Mr. Peckham.
Yeah, if you review the guidelines for the Harvest Host campers, it sounds great, no generators, no noise, don't be grilling out and all that stuff. But then we received this letter from Rebecca Borchardt. I don't know if the Zamzos are aware of that. We can give them a copy, but basically it says that she's at 831 East Thomas. She's had to get used to being watched in my yard by random people camping out in lawn chairs with stereos going and generators running on a daily basis. Generators also run through the night. Dogs are curious about the people and their pets hanging out. And there have been times that the majority of the parking area is full of campers. So I would like to see a situation where this could be accommodated, but perhaps not in a space adjacent to residential property. I wonder if Mr. Zamzo, if it would be okay to ask him to react to that.
Yes, definitely. I think he would like to react to that.
I mean, looking at the map, can you move them so they're not adjacent to residential property?
In the packet that you have, the back page shows the locations. And you'll notice that on the north end, the 2 spots got the little white line there, and they're adjacent to the laundromat. They are not adjacent to the residential. Can you see that?
Barely.
Yeah, it's a little light there, but
It's hard to tell. It's hard to tell what's under
you
the
see like a
trees.
white letter T there. There's 2 spots. One's marked.
Yeah.
And then if you go down to the south there, between the former cleaners and beer garden, there's the same kind of markings there. That's in the middle of our property there, so there's nothing adjacent to any residential.
Yeah, that would seem to be ideal for this situation. It's not very scenic for your guests, for your camper guests, but over
Yeah.
there, so close to those homes, if we could avoid that, I think that'd be great.
There's no home. The line that is adjacent to all of the homes has none of these parking spots there.
Okay, so the area that you've designated on the map is not necessarily the area that people have been using so far?
Well, I've never heard about this before.
Where have you been allowing the campers to locate? Anywhere they want to
In
in the lot?
exactly those 4 spots only.
Okay.
I'm not aware of what this lady is talking about.
Is it accurate that sometimes the majority of the parking area is full of campers?
No, it's never been more than 2 or, sometimes 3. We've never even had 3, so we've only had 2.
Okay.
Thank you. Any other questions for Mr. Zanzo or comments? Mr. Borneman?
Just that, I know there's, rules and regulations through the Harvest Host group, but does the city have rules or regulations, like, are these enforceable by the city as far as, no generators or, certainly noises just by the municipal code, but do we have other rules that would apply to something like this so that, specifically say generators, they can't run their generators at night?
Right, we wouldn't allow any, I thought about that with this, I just didn't know how to put that in a staff report. It's in the rules that they're not allowed to run it continuously and overnight, and we would enforce that through a general nuisance ordinance as well. Any home that doesn't have power is not, it wouldn't be occupiable to have a generator run up continuously.
I would like to add that, according to the Harvest Host policy, if any of the people that are Harvest Host members violate these things, like it's saying in here, they will be dropped from the program.
Okay, but a question for you. Now, are these only available to Harvest Host members?
Only Harvest Host members.
Oh, okay.
This is
So it's not the general, like any person traveling through town with a Winnebago or something can't pull in there and?
No.
Okay.
Okay.
They have to, I'm sorry, Mayor.
Go ahead.
They have to sign up with your staff in
Yes.
advance.
It's just like sort of like a hotel. They have to call in advance. They get assigned either spots 1, 2, 3, or 4, and that is held for them. And then next morning, they cannot be there longer than 24 hours.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Mr. Peckham?
Or just that, Mr. Zamzo, have you had people come to your business since these motorhomes and stuff have been coming there and complaining to you about it? Or is this all brand new, fresh, that anybody would be irritated?
This letter here is fresh. Mike, do you know? In fact, we've got a lot of complimentary things which I could have brought.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other discussion, or are we ready to vote? All right, we are voting to accept the staff recommendation for the specific implementation plan at 901 East Thomas Street to allow for camper vehicles to park overnight in a planned unit development zoning district. All of those in favor can signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, that passes unanimously. Thank you. All right, moving on to item number 5, our last public hearing of the evening. Discussion and possible action on approving a conditional use at 8454 Highland Drive to allow for mobile diagnostic imaging as an accessory use in a medium industrial zoning district. This is from Shared Medical Technology. I'll let Sam take it away for a little preview on this bit.
Thank you, Mayor. So yeah, we have a request on the far west side of the city for essentially an extension of the clinic doing diagnostic imagery on a trailer, but the trailer would be parked long-term and it would sit in one spot, according to the application. This doesn't really exist in our zoning code as a specific use necessarily, but there is a provision for temporary relocatable buildings, and we thought that was the best fit. Putting it through the conditional use permit process, then we have something to lean on if there's a complaint. It ensures that there's not going to be all sorts of trailers parked everywhere doing the same thing. Being zoned industrial, trailers are a common sight, so we don't anticipate any sort of visual or nuisance sort of stuff along with it. The advantage to these sort of setups, my understanding is that it provides a greater range of services for health systems, but keeps costs down. And the conditional use permit would give them approval to park it there longer than 6 months. It would have to be parked exactly where they're depicting it, right alongside the building. And these sort of structures can't be more than 10% of the site's area, which it clearly meets. And I think that about covers it. I can answer any questions.
Okay, maybe before we allow questions, since this is a public hearing, I'm going to open it up for anybody that would like to talk about the conditional use at 8454 Highland Drive to allow for mobile diagnostic imaging. Yes,
Hello.
please state your name and address for the record, and welcome.
Leo Dunleavy,
Okay.
and I'm here representing Shared Medical Technology, and we're based out of Rice Lake, Wisconsin.
Thank you.
I guess I would like to clarify, it will not sit for more than 2 to 3 days. It is a mobile unit, and we do share it. That's part of that's what we do as our business model. So this trailer actually will cruise across the 29 corridor right now at this time. We are offering more services than just MRI as well, and that's that's our largest piece of equipment. That's why we took the picture of it sitting at that facility. We offer all the other modalities as well.
But it would be visiting the site for longer than a 6-month period, correct?
Yes.
Just not
Yes.
6 months contiguously.
Correct, yes.
Got it.
Yeah,
Thank
I
you.
misunderstood you, sorry.
Oh, perfect. Thank
So,
you.
Here to answer any questions that you folks may have.
Okay, before I let them ask any questions, I'm going to just make sure if there's anybody else here who would like to talk to us about this conditional use at 8454 Highland Drive. The public hearing is open. That's my second time asking it. All right, I will just ask for the third and last time, if anybody would like to come forward and speak at this public hearing for the conditional use at 8454 Highland Drive. Okay, I'm going to close this public hearing up and welcome discussion, maybe a motion from, I have a motion from Tom Neil, I'm guessing to accept the conditional use. Okay, second by Bergman. Any discussion? Yes, Mr. Peckham.
Yeah, I'm a little confused, I guess, maybe not so much now that he's spoken, but says that the request is to allow the operation of mobile diagnostic imaging trailer, but then I just got the idea that it's just going to be parked there. So are patients going to be coming to that trailer to have imaging done, or is the trailer just going to be parked there and then taken to clinic or hospital settings?
Actually, both. Yes, some patients will come to this facility for diagnostic imaging. Otherwise, it's a staging area for relocating to hospitals and clinics.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Yes, Mr. Bergman. Do you want to use your mic just so public access doesn't yell at me?
Conditional use, does that pass with the property owners, or is that only specific to this request? So I thought with the zoning thing, do the conditional use permits pass to the next property owner in this case, or no?
I'm going to have Brad answer that since the stuff isn't off the top of my head yet.
Brad is back with us.
Yeah, the conditional use stays with the property, not with the owners,
Okay, thank you.
in a nutshell.
Any other questions or comments before we vote? I'm not seeing any, so the motion is to approve the conditional use at 8454 Highland Drive to allow for a mobile diagnostic imaging as an accessory use in a medium industrial zoning district. All those in favor can signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, that passes unanimously. Thank you. All right, we are moving right along to item number 6. Discussion and possible action on vacating and discontinuing an unpaved alley abutting 205 and 209 through 211 Short Street, 1202, 1210, and 1212 North 3rd Street. Is there somebody that wants to give us a little bit of a preview on this before we talk, or is it pretty standard? All right, we had a motion to approve by Brueggemann. Do I have a second? Second by Bornemann. Any discussion? Nope. All of those in favor of approving this vacation and discontinuing an unpaved alley can signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that passes unanimously. Next meeting date and future agenda items for consideration. I don't have the next meeting date on my thing, but I think that.
August 3rd.
4th.
All right, August 4th is what we've
That's a
all come
special-
to.
yeah,
It's a special meeting, so put that in your calendar, August 4th. All right, next motion to adjourn. Motion by Bornemann, second by Bergman. All right, we are adjourned, everyone. Thank you very much.